Moni. This is It's Mental podcast. Today, I have a special guest from Barcelona. I met her when I was touring there, and she's so funny. So I was like, I need to interview her. And I talked with her. She has a really interesting journey. So today I want to talk with her and learn about her story. And too bad that this podcast is only in audio, so you are not going to see her amazingly cute cat on camera. So Mara, do you want to introduce your cat and yourself?
First, my cat, of course, because she's more important. My cat is called Regina. She is a Romanian street cat, and she has been my baby since 12 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And hopefully she's going to live at least 8 more years. That's what my plan is. I am Romanian. I've been living in Barcelona for 10 years. I'm an English teacher, and a year and a bit ago, I started doing stand-up comedy. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Many things I could say about myself, but let's stick to this for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when I talk with you, I ask you, how did you start to do comedy? Could you also share with us?
Yes. I also run a pub quiz every Sunday, and the pub quiz I started 5 years ago. And so when you have a pub quiz and you're doing like the MC part and you're hosting, you have a lot of freedom to make silly jokes whenever you want to, improvise stuff. I guess a bit of crowd work because you have all the people there. So I've always liked being a bit of a clown and making word jokes and word games, and just I enjoy making people laugh. So I think throughout the years of hosting the quiz, I was like, am I funny? Like, am I legitimately funny? And then slowly some comedy people from the Barcelona comedy scene started coming to my quiz. And then I started going to their events. And you know, when you go to your first comedy show and you go, oh, this is awesome. Could I be as fun? I mean, like, maybe I am, and like, maybe I have the capacity. And slowly you start to think of jokes, and then you start planning it. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I watched a Steve Martin masterclass on masterclass.com. He had one, and I was like super inspired. And I wrote a lot of material. And then it was the 1st of March 2020 when I got a spot at an open mic in Barcelona. It's called Atomic Comedy, and so I'm an atomic comedy baby. And I had my first 5 minutes, and I had so much material prepared about different things, but just the week before I decided to scrap all of it and do only COVID jokes, because it was just the start of an epidemic, not a pandemic, on the 1st of March. And I was like, oh, this is funny. I'm going to make these jokes. I did say one thing in my 5-minute set, which was, this is the last week that these jokes are still funny. I was right. So I got to do my first stand-up 2 weeks before the lockdown started, and then I had to wait a year and a half before I could go back on stage. So yeah.
Wow. So you actually, your stage time is only like half a year?
No, it's so I started my first time in 2020, like 1st of March 2020, and I know it doesn't feel like it, but it's already 2022. So I had one time, and then like 1 year and a bit break. Then I started again. Yeah, actually, you're right. I'm getting the time wrong. And I started again last spring. So last March is my second time performing.
Okay, so it's like 1 year.
1 year and that one time.
Yeah, because I feel like you are way too good for 6 months experience. But I think like you do lots of like shorter jokes, and because you are an English teacher, I guess like you are really good at control the language.
Thank you for that. I'll accept that. I received that compliment.
And when we talk privately previously, you said when you started to do comedy, there was some life changes happen in your private life.
As well. So when I first did my first set ever, I was living with my ex-boyfriend. We had been living together for 5 years and a half. Then the pandemic came, and that was a bit well, you know, devastating for everybody. Um, and then that summer, when things started to sort of finally calm down and relax, Barcelona was still quite dead. There were not a lot of things happening. Bars were still not open. There were masks everywhere. And so I decided, because I didn't know what to do with my time in the summertime, normally I traveled, I decided this is the opportunity for me to go and travel and do something I've always wanted to do, which is to go to Iceland and stay and do something there for 2 months. So I did that with a friend of mine. I went to Iceland. We found a job in a hotel. Um, I was working in all the things they needed, like cleaning rooms. Sorry, this is a cat tail in the screen. Cleaning rooms, cleaning bathrooms. It was really funny because I told my parents, I'm going to go to work in a hotel in Iceland. And they were like, oh, so you're going to work front desk. And I said, I'm going to work whatever they need. And when my mom called me, she said, what are you doing now? And I'm like, I'm cleaning a bathroom. He's like, oh, a bathroom? But you have a master's degree. And yeah, I do, but like no job is above me. Like jobs are jobs.
I have a question. Did you get paid more clean bathroom in Iceland than being an English teacher in Barcelona?
I could have if it was a different hotel, but I was actually getting paid more, you know, also I was getting free housing. So
okay.
In the end, I think it was worth it because I was living for free in Iceland. And that moment specifically, I was somewhere where I didn't have to wear a mask outside or anywhere.
That's great.
So compare that to Barcelona, where everywhere you went, you had to wear a mask all the time. Just the fact that you could see people's faces and you could shake hands with strangers was like a freedom that, I don't know, it was so joyful. I was like, wow, do you remember? Because it was that, like, after 6 months of lockdown, like, I think everybody was just, I'm going to appreciate it so much when I see another person's face, I'm going to be grateful forever. Yeah. So I went to Iceland. I worked there for 2 months. My boyfriend at the time stayed home with the cats, and he continued his job because he had his job. I turned 33 in Iceland, and I also worked on a farm. And then I also fell in love with the first girl I ever liked, and then that kind of triggered a bit of a, I guess, strange period in my life, to say the least. But now I'm kind of reevaluating it and thinking maybe it was in my timeline to have a mental breakdown then. Like maybe it's not Iceland that is like this big bad place that because of I shouldn't have gone to Iceland. Look what happened to me. I should have stayed home. All my life would have been better. I'm like, no, maybe this was just 33 is when it was time. I was like, oh, I think it's time for a bit of a reevaluation of your life. So, man. So that girl ended up kind of ghosting me. Wonderful. And gaslighting me, like a bit of a combination of everything you can possibly want in a relationship.
Wow, she sounds like a man.
Yeah, exactly, right? No, women can do it too. Like, give women the credit they deserve. We can do everything men can do and better. Because I did try to like experiment with relationship structures, and I was like, okay, but I really love my boyfriend. I don't want to leave him just because I like somebody else, because like I believe that there are different types of love and different types of romance, and I don't want to be super closed-minded, and I think maybe polyamory can work. I mean, I'm an insecure person, but who knows, I don't want to lose an opportunity to explore a part of my life that I've never had before. So I tried that and that didn't work. So here I am, finally in June 2021, I had no boyfriend, no girlfriend, and a bit of a depression or something that I didn't really know what it was. So that was fun.
And you told me that's when you will experience this, and you told yourself you will continue do comedy and it's good for you.
Yeah, it was like the springtime, last spring is when I restarted comedy, and then I was still sort of dating that girl and dating my ex-boyfriend, and I was still hoping that things would would stay like this. And after things got worse and I was suddenly single, I took like I think 3 months break from comedy, from everything. I was like, I can't go on stage and make jokes. It doesn't feel okay. But then in September this year is when I started again full speed, and I was like, fuck this, life is too short. This can turn into something funny. Like, you know, take your trauma, turn it into jokes, because talking about things makes them less terrifying. And the more you mention them, it's not like if you run away from something, it's suddenly gonna become less terrifying. It's gonna still, like, the more you run away from it, it's gonna stay terrifying. But if you turn around and you talk about it and you face it, then you can turn it into something beautiful. I think that's basically all of art, is people having a crisis or crises and learning to transform them into something else.
Wow, I do believe like it's commonly said that comedy is a tragedy plus time. I think for my comedy is mostly tragedy plus time. I feel this is the constant source of my comedy. And I would like to ask you, do you have material about the breakup, the relationship you had?
I have some jokes about the relationship in Iceland that I haven't tried yet, but I have them. I do have jokes about realizing I'm queer. A lot of my jokes are about that. I have jokes about my ex-boyfriend and how, like the breakup with him, and that, and then jokes about, of course, discovering Tinder for the first time and all of that crazy world. Like, oh God, oh, what a jungle, like it was just the shock of being on Tinder was like, this is very good inspiration for comedy, but also tragic.
Yeah,
So,
like Tinder is really, really scary.
yeah, it is a scary place. So I'm happy that I got off it, and now I'm dating a guy, which again is a source of comedy, because a lot of my friends were like, but you're queer. And I'm like, but yeah, that doesn't mean I mean, all of a sudden I'm allergic to guys, like I spent 33 years of my life dating men. It's not that all of them are terrifying. And I found one woman, and this means that now I'm just walking around the street going, boobs, like, not really how it works for me personally. So yeah.
Yeah, about the breakup, I actually want to consult you.
Tell me.
I also came out from a long-term relationship end of last year, and he broke up with me in October. He told me he has commitment issue, and then he said he wants time to think about it. And eventually 2 weeks later, I told him, I think there's no more thinking. I think it's a decision. We need to go apart, because now with some distance, I realized there's some things fundamentally is not working. So I broke up with him, and I thought I processed everything. I thought I grieved. I thought I moved on, and then I was lucky. Like 5 weeks later, I started dating a guy who is a good friend of mine, and it's a great relationship. And I thought, okay, I was sad, I was depressed, and I moved on. And then I'm lucky I met someone. And since a few weeks ago, I feel really depressed, and I didn't know the answer. And I realized that oh, I just never allowed myself to grieve. Like when in October, when my ex-boyfriend broke up with me, I was preparing for a really big project in November, which is the first Berlin Mental Health Festival. So it's a week of festival. So I drawn myself into work. And as soon as the festival ended, I had my first solo show in December, and I was preparing for it. And since then, like I performed my solo show like 15 times. So every week I'm stressed, every week I'm working on it. And last week I suddenly had a little bit perspective. I was like, wow, I realized I'm like avoiding my emotions. I realized I just didn't give myself any time to grieve, because I realized like I saw the grief means, okay, this relationship ended. I accept the reality. I move on. That's grief. But now I start to see it. Oh, it's not only that. It's also like so many years of my life like it has ended, and I once was planning my life with this person, and now now my future is no longer with this person, and that means so many things change in my life and in my planning, and also a different lifestyle. I once was living with this person, living with his connections, his friends, his family, and suddenly all those people in my life are gone. And I'm like, of course I wasn't happy, like all those things I didn't deal with. And also all those good things happened in my life. Like when I said I moved on, I just don't think about the past and jump into a new relationship. And because I want to be loyal for my new boyfriend, so of course I didn't want to think much about the past relationship. But suddenly I realized, oh, it's not about the relationship with this guy, but also like so many years of my life, the good things happening in my life, the good memories in my life, I have cut it off and just sealed it and not visit it. And I'm like, wow, this is really not healthy. So I decided I will start my grief period, but I just don't know how. Like, how did you deal with it, and what do you think is like a healthy process all these different things, events happen in your life, and deal with all those memories, the good, the bad, and the ugly?
That's a very good question, and I wish I had an answer, but I think one answer is that there is no healthy way of grieving, like there is no manual, because we're all so very different. So for every person, grief is going to look like what you're capable of doing and revisiting in the moment. Because just in the when it was so fresh and so new, I just felt that if I let myself grieve at the point where I was then, with the emotional maturity and the capacity I had then, I felt that I was going to die inside. Because I don't know, I don't think we're ever taught how to process our emotions. I don't think, sadly, that most of our parents knew how to do that for us and knew how to I guess portray to us or to explain to us, this is what, like, sit with us when we're having difficult feelings. They would normally be like, oh, don't be theatrical, stop crying, what are you crying about? So when it's our turn to grieve, we do the same thing to ourselves that our parents taught us, which is to say, well, are you sure this is worth crying about? And like, no, come on, toughen up, you know uh do the right thing, which is to suppress things. So we don't have a manual, or we don't have instructions built in for how to process so-called negative emotions, that now I don't think they're necessarily negative, but it's just how we think. Not like, ooh, sadness, I don't want this. Anxiety, I don't want this. Depression, fuck it. So you just push it down, push it down, push it down, and then eventually, like a ball in the water, it comes back up, because you can't keep it down forever, right? But I guess for me, what it was is just, it's time, and it's actually believing that time will make you able to process it a bit better, and just the distance. And it's also the fact that the grief stays the same. So I remember seeing this beautiful diagram, which is like, grief stays the same. What changes is not the size of the grief, it's just the size of the world that you build around it, and the space that you open around it, so that your life is not just about that and what you've lost, but it's also about all these other things that you start to create around you. So in your case, the fact that you threw yourself into your work, and you started a new relationship, and you built things to rebuild your life and to refill it with new definitions of who you are, not just I am Moni, I'm Moni who lives with this person, I'm Moni who has, these habits, but I'm somebody who, then you build a bigger space, and in that space your grief has space to breathe. So you can take it like a little moments and be like, okay, now I feel like crying about this relationship. And when you feel that, you're like, okay, well, am I safe? Am I in a safe space? Can I cry about this? And just yeah, I recently, I mean, I still have a lot of moments when I think about the 6 years of living with my ex-boyfriend. And as you said, it's a life together, and you're not grieving just the past.
Yeah.
You're grieving not just the relationship with him, but the you that was in the relationship, and the future that, like, that's not going to happen anymore, right? So it's all of that you feel like, I fuck it, I'm grieving his parents, like I loved his parents. So things like that, but they're not dead, they're not gone, they're still there and they still love me. So, but my mind is just a very, like, it's sometimes I just have to pat my brain on the head and go, oh, you love this kind of like nostalgic shit, don't you? Like I'll look at it like a drawing and I'll be like, I can't look at it, I can't, because it's gonna make me cry. And I'm like, but what if I do? What if I go full blast and I am this melodramatic bitch that cries at everything? Let me be that child that wasn't allowed to cry when I wanted to, like, can I just do that? And the answer is yes. Like, I'm the one who decides. Like, there is no too much of a crybaby, or there's no timeline, you know? So last summer, like, I would have moments when I'd have to talk myself into, like, okay, like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Just keep functioning, keep yourself floating, and eventually just trust that somehow things are gonna get better. You don't know how, because you're not omnipotent and omniscient. You just don't know everything, Mara. So just trust that brains heal, people heal, nature heals, and then you're gonna get better too. So all the metaphors that I could think of connected to grief and things like that, I tried to think of. So one of them that helped me was to think that when you're grieving, you're like in the bottom of a well, and you don't know how to get out, and you want to cry, but you don't let yourself cry because you think, well, if you start crying, you're going to drown. But then I thought, actually, if you cry, your tears are salty, and so you're going to float, and it's just going to bring you to the surface, because you're not crying to feel better, you're crying because you need to release it. So you know that you can't cry forever, although like in the moment you're like, oh shit, this is never going to end. So then I just thought, well, if you cry, then little by little you're getting closer and closer to the surface, and then you're going to get out of it, because it brings you back to where you've just spent all of that sadness that you had to spend.
And how do you deal with the memories?
The memories are there, and the thing is that's a very good question too, because I had like all the things, the souvenirs and all the beautiful things from my ex-girlfriend, who didn't think she was my girlfriend. Fuck that shit.
This is like a joke. Berlin comedian Pat Moore.
Yeah.
He said, oh, it's one of the relationship when you break up, you realize you are not in a relationship.
Yeah, those are so beautiful. No, when you're like, what do you mean this wasn't a relationship? But but so I had all of this, I was trying to recover from that, and seeing all the objects that reminded me of her, and it was for me such an intense relationship, like in the middle of a 6-year relationship where, after 6 years you're kind of like best friends with your partner. It's not this crazy butterfly love. But then after that ended, I was dealing with that, and then my boyfriend also broke up with me, and I was like, oh, now I'm dealing with 6 years of memories, so like everything, like, oh, we got this place together, we furnished this place together, everything, and the way you deal with the memories is that you don't try to deal with them. You just go, oh, here's my brain allowing me, like, here's my brain bringing up memories, and I can get angry at it and like frustrated and be like, why are you doing this? But it's normal brain behavior. Like, of course, what else is it gonna think about? Like, now I have some of the memories of my relationship stuck on a loop. And from time to time, I'll be in the middle of a Pilates class and I'll remember one specific trip we took together. And I'm like, why this one? But sometimes it's not logical and there are no answers. So trying really hard to understand what your brain's doing is sometimes a waste of energy. And you can try, but you're probably gonna get stuck in a loop. Or you can just go, oh, this is just my brain braining. Meh, this is just what brains do. It's, there are sacks of meat with electricity in them. I don't have to take it so seriously. But what I can do is, okay, what do I want to use my time on? What do I want to build?
I think my brain works a little bit differently. In my situation, I just feel my brain wouldn't visit any memories, like not the good one, not the bad one. And I feel my issue is that how can I go through the memories and to understand the beauty of it, but also to accept, okay, there's no other way. Breakup was the owning like outcome of it. So I think why my brain is not really visiting the memories is because I'm afraid I would come out with another conclusion. Although I know there's no way, because actually now I want to share with you, because actually you recommended me this book 2 weeks ago. It's called Burnout by, what's her name?
Emily Nagoski.
Yeah, I cannot pronounce her last name. I think it's really funny because 2 weeks ago we are supposed to have this podcast. Then I text you, I'm like, oh, I'm burned out, I cannot move, can we delay? And then you send me this book. I'm like, oh, I really want to read a book about burnout. So I listened to it and I really binged it. I listened to the whole book in 2 days. And finally I finished it. And I'm like, okay, today I'm tired. I just want to watch Netflix. Then I turn on my Netflix, and the first thing recommended is a documentary called The Principles of Pleasure. And I click on it. It's the same girl again. I'm like, oh, she's everywhere. And I was like, oh, she's following me. So I found that's quite funny. And I think it's really a great book, from the female perspective. I think as a woman myself, I think a large part of me is also misogynistic, because if you grow up in an environment telling you that women are less, telling you like, oh, it's all women's fault, the world suppose it's being this, it's very hard to have a like a unbiased view on gender. So and I realized, okay, when I was listening this book, it's from the female perspective, then so many things I experienced, but I couldn't describe. I don't know how to put it into words. It really helped me to conceptualize it. And also I really like one part of it, it talks about, I forgot the effect. She explains why there are some like straight white men, they doesn't understand there's sexism or racism in this world, because the road for them is flat. They cannot imagine that the road for others is different. And I was like, oh, that's how it works, because I used to have a friend. He is a 190 meter tall straight white man coming from a upper class family, and he believes there's no sexism, and he believes there's no racism, and he says now in workplace is so unfair that when a job interview there's a tie between a woman and a man, they would prefer the woman. And he's like, now I have to be better at everyone in order to get a job. I was like, isn't that how it works for a job interview? Like that by definition, you need to be better than anyone. And in this case, it's just when it's a tie, she gets an advantage, but it's not like if she's worse than you, she can get the job. And why are you and it's been thousands of years, it's always the other way around, and why are you so angry anyway?
Yeah.
And I feel, oh, that's how it means. So I think it's really, really a great book. And in and then in this how to say, in this documentary, he's talking about female pleasure. And one thing really, really like clicked me is in the episode 3. They talk about the rights to access to pleasure for people with any kind, like no matter you are straight or gay or bisexual or transgender or fat or Asian or white or whatever, everyone has rights.
Romanian.
Yeah. Oh, Romanian.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no matter who you are, you have the right to access pleasure. And then it really resonated with me. I was crying when I saw this, because like growing up in China, like there's a very defined beauty view that you have to be like a tall on 160 and pale skin and really, really slim in order to be perceived good looking. And growing up, like I have the like a eating disorder, and I always think always like feel I'm too fat, I need to lose weight, which is true in that society. Like I'm treated super fat there. And then my ex-boyfriend, when we were together, he told me he doesn't like my body, he thinks I'm too fat, and he wants me to lose weight. And at the beginning I was like, okay, I will try to do more exercise. But after a while, I'm like, no, like I fought with my eating disorder for so many years. Like I don't want to go on that route. I know as soon as I want to lose weight again, I will start to binge eating. And then I argued with him. And then in this documentary, it talk about this effect called spectating effect. Means when you are having sex, because of all the body shaming and all the like social pressure and discrimination added on some certain group of people, when they are having sex, they cannot even enjoy the sex. Their mind is not in their body, their mind is like next to the body, looking at themselves, judging themselves. Yeah. And I was like, oh, of course I couldn't have orgasm. For a woman, you need to be like focus on your pleasure in order to experience orgasm. And after watch this, I'm like, oh, of course I never had orgasm. And it's with my new partner. It's the first time in my life. I'm 32 years old. It's the first time in my life I am able to experience orgasm. And for so many years, I always thought it's a female orgasm. Yeah, and for so many years in my life, I always thought, oh, it's my fault. Oh, maybe I'm just damaged product. Maybe my structure is just not good. It's my fault. And by watching this documentary, I'm like, oh, of course it's not my fault. Like I grew up in China where like having sex is a thing. A woman can like women who enjoy pleasure is considered slut, and they are not supposed to have sex with anyone else other than their husband. Of course, like growing up in an environment like this, plus having a fat body, of course, like I shame myself so much.
You don't have a fat body. You have a body that is considered fat by the society that you were brought up in.
Yes.
Because if you ask me, I don't consider you fat. And if you ask a lot of people from this planet, maybe, I don't know, 70% of them will say, what are you talking about, Moni? But there will be some societies where they have this brainwashing.
Yes, you are right. So my body was considered fat and unpleasant. And in an environment like this, also like sex was not allowed. Of course, I couldn't concentrate like during sex. Of course, I was unable to experience orgasm. Plus, I was with a partner who tell me my body is not attractive, and that like I'm like, wow, this is and now I understand. Oh, of course it wasn't working. So I'm very sure this relationship, there's no other option other than break up. And after I watched this documentary, I called him. I said, like, really, what you told me is really unkind, but it's not your fault, because I also didn't know this is totally not acceptable. But next time if a man tell me this, I will just say it's not working, let's stop. And next time, if you feel the same way about a woman, just tell her it's not working. Like, don't ever tell anyone their body is not beautiful.
I agree. So I mean that you're spot on. So there's no other way this could have worked.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's like it's a good thought, or a thought that has helped me a lot, because last year I also started following a podcast that I really fell in love with, and then I became part of their coaching group, and that provided me with a lot of help.
What's
And
the name?
it's called Unfuck Your Brain.
Mm-hmm. Wow,
It's by
nice name.
yeah, very good. It's by Cara Loventhal. She's a feminist coach from New York, and she's amazing. So she talks a lot about how it's like what she teaches is almost like cognitive behavioral therapy, but with a bit more layers added to it. And it's about how also about how like we are not responsible for our thoughts. Thoughts come to us from different places. Sometimes it's like brains hiccuping, like if you hiccup, you don't get angry, right? But if you start telling a story about how hiccuping is bad, then you get angry. It's the same. Brains produce all kind of crazy thoughts. And sometimes the thoughts are from society. Sometimes they're from your family. Sometimes you heard it in a song or a Disney movie and it just gets stuck in your brain and then you believe it. And because you repeat it more and more, you believe that it's true. And then because you believe it's true, you take action from it. And because you take action from it, you create results that prove the thought true. But that doesn't mean that thought is like true. It's just a sentence that you decided to act upon. But thoughts have no moral value. And that's something that, as somebody who was raised more or less Christian, like I'm a Christian Orthodox by baptism, but not like my family is not super religious, but it's everywhere around me in Romania growing up. You're taught that even if you have a bad thought, you're a bad person. So then you're like, yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yes.
I have a question. Do you
Tell
have
me.
herpes?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard from my Romanian friend, everyone have herpes because they all kiss the statues of Jesus. And
Yeah. But it's not like it. Yeah. So that's another taboo kind of stupid thing. That's horrible. So many things are taboo and shameful, and you're like, yeah, it's anyway. But so where was I with the podcast? The podcast helped me. What were we talking about before that? I lost my trail of thought.
yeah, I think we are talking about thoughts are not good or bad. And you said this podcast helped you a lot on
Yeah. Yeah, because
reforming.
you had the thoughts about your body, and
Yeah.
yes. So it was about the relationship with your ex-boyfriend, that this coach in her podcast has one thought that really helped me, which is there is no other way things could have gone in that moment, given what you believed in and what your ex believed in that very moment, who you were in those moments. This is the only reality that could have existed, because that's who you were then and that's who he was then, and that's the only way it could have been. And it's not good or bad, it's just the only way things could have gone, because if they could have gone in a different way, they would have gone in a different way. So that kind of helps you make peace with things, because you're like, well, it's just his background, his upbringing, his thoughts that interact with my background, my upbringing, my thoughts and my emotions and everything. Then this is like a Venn diagram, and what's in the middle is the result of this interaction. So thinking about how maybe it could have gone differently, no, it couldn't have. This is the only way it could have gone. So that helped me a bit, and to think, okay, there's nothing I did or I could have done. If this person believed something about me, if my ex-girlfriend, you can't see me, like, but I'm doing air quotes. So if my ex-girlfriend had a thought in her head that was, this relationship can't work, then there's nothing I could have done to change that, because she's filtering everything through this bias. And the same, if your ex-boyfriend had the thought, oh, I prefer women who look different, then, like, I'm sorry, but your body is perfect the way it is.
Yeah.
You just need to find a different boyfriend. That's it. So
yeah, you know, like when I was listening this book, she also talk about like the book you recommend, Burn Out. It's a book called Burn Out, but actually it's not really about the career burnout, but it's about all the stress the society put on women specifically. And I really recommend everyone, including men, reading it, because she explains things so well. Like for example, she explained the concept of learned helplessness. I read so many books about mental health, so I know the concept very well. But the way she explained to it, I burst into tears. I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I was experiencing. And also in this book, she also talked about body acceptance. And I was really crying when she said, like, your body is beautiful the way you are. And like in China, it's like, growing up, I never heard about this, you know, like before my current boyfriend, I never heard anyone say this to me. I remember my first boyfriend, he said, oh, he said, you can be fatter, but then you need to be, you can gain weight, but you need to be taller, otherwise you are not proportional. And my last boyfriend was like, you are fat, and that make me don't want to have sex with you. You need to lose weight. I'm like, oh, how many like shit guys I have.
Could you tell him, like, oh, actually, I would need your penis to be 2 centimeters bigger and like a couple of millimeters thicker. Could you change that about your body? You can't? Oh, what a pity. Fuck you. You know, like, yeah, no, it's just so ridiculous that anybody, not only a man, but anybody, because women do this to women too, especially parents to their children, to say that somebody's body needs to look different than what it looks like should be considered some form of crime, because it's not okay. This is my body. I live in it. It's not yours.
You know, when you are talking about this, you sound like this is of course it's this way, but the society, especially like people from like me from a society totally different. In that society, what you said is totally how do you say, controversy. For example, growing up, my most admired TV host, a woman, her slogan is that either you die or you get slim. And I worshipped her, and she how do you say, do TV commercials to present products which can bleach your pussy to make it pink. And then now I'm 32 years old. I'm like, wow, like what kind of shaming, what kind of like self-hatred you have to say things like that and to promote products like that. And growing up, my mom is like, oh, you are fat, you are fat, you are fat. And sometimes she will say nice things. She's like, actually, you don't look that fat as long as you wear long skirts, always cover your legs.
I mean, you're saying this, but I'm not actually coming from a more enlightened culture. I'm just now, because I've started listening to this podcast last year, and the coach, Cara Loventhal, according to, I guess, most beauty standards, is not like, she does not fit most beauty standards, but she loves herself. And it didn't come overnight. She had huge body confidence issues, but she worked her way through it, and she understood that it's just a thought, that like, it's not a fact that she's fat or that fat is bad or all of this. because in the US, it's a huge industry. Like judging people by their body mass index is such a profitable thing for medicine, for diet culture. So just this year being exposed to this and starting to follow Instagram people who are body positive, fat people, people who are like, yes, this is my body and I don't care if I weigh I don't know how much, I don't own a scale. This for me changed my mentality because
Wow.
I come from a country, Romania is not better than China at this
Really?
at all. No, fuck no. My mom, when I was 15, I was looking at my legs and I thought, oh, do I have cellulite? And I was 15 or 16, and I think I probably weighed, I don't know, 40 something kilos. I was a skinny bitch. And my mom was like, oh, you do have cellulite. That's strange. When I was your age, I didn't have cellulite. So instead of telling me, oh, that doesn't matter anyway, she was like, you do have it. Oh,
What's
and so
cellulite?
Cellulite is like when you squeeze your skin and it looks like an orange, like a,
Oh, I have that.
yeah. So, but like, then all the magazines, all the cosmopolitans and the whatever were like, how to make it go away. And I remember buying creams that had magical things in them. And I like thinking, okay, if I do this, then I'm not going to have cellulite. And I went through a phase of like disordered eating. I never binged and purged. Uh, and I consider myself lucky that it didn't occur to me as a thing. But I went through a phase of like going on a keto diet, and I was super convinced about this is like the only way that you can be healthy is if you completely eliminate sugar from your life, and no pasta and no pizza and none of this. And I lost a lot of weight and I looked super skinny and I was super proud of myself. And I went to like even like measure how much fat I had in my body. And that was, I don't know, 5 years ago or some 4 years ago. And I'm like, that the fuck was I doing? Like, just, because in a way, it's a way of controlling yourself, right? It's like you have control. And as humans, we hate not having control. So if you can control your body, you're like, yes, I'm winning at life, but you're not. Because what you're trying to do is thinking that if I look a certain way, I'm going to be happy. But that's not where happiness comes from. So now, like last summer when I was depressed, I weighed 50 kilos just because I didn't have any appetite to eat. So I was like, oh, I guess I have to feed myself. Just come on, Mara, eat something. And I just didn't want to eat anything. And finally, like when things started to get better, I was going to this treatment center that does neurofeedback. It's like a
Wow,
electric
cool.
something for your head, and I think it helped with my anxiety. But every time I went there, I passed by this amazing bakery and they had really good croissants. So I don't know what helped me with my anxiety, if it was the neurofeedback or the croissants. But now I weigh 60 kilos. And I think in the past, if I had weighed 60 kilos, I would be like, 60 kilos, look at your belly. And now I'm like, look at my butt. My butt looks amazing. And like my thighs look amazing. And sure, my clothes don't fit me, but it's not because my body is too big for my clothes. It's because my clothes are not good enough for my body. I just need different clothes. Like
Oh,
it's it's so many ways of looking at it. And the people who judge you for this, fuck them. There's other people out there who are body positive, and that's the people you want in your life. So yeah.
wow, it's amazing to know that people like you also had the body acceptance issue, because in my eyes, like you look perfect.
Thank you. But like, I have a belly now. Like if Mara from today traveled to Mara from 5 years ago, I think Mara from 5 years ago would be horrified and she'd be like, oh my God, like really? You let yourself go. Look at the belly you have. Like, oh, but I'd be like, it's a false sense of happiness that you
Yeah.
have. Like, how can you control this? Also, give me that chocolate. Chocolate is heaven. Like, give me that dopamine. Like, healthy food. Oh no, there's only healthy food and the other food is evil. No, that's bullshit. So fuck diet culture. Now I believe in this with a passion. And this is proof for me and for you that our upbringing was fucked up. But isn't it amazing that brains change? And isn't it amazing that something that you thought was normal back when you were younger you were like, oh, this woman is my hero. Now you're like, this is not a woman. And that on the one hand, you can say, oh my God, what a terrible thing that I believed that. I'm so embarrassed that I ever believed that. But actually, it's amazing, and you should be proud that you don't believe that anymore, because escaping conditioning that you spend years of your life in, that's the victory.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And another thing I want to talk about is that like the book you recommend me is from a female point of view, and I want to talk about a change in me, like growing up. Like I remember when people were talking about, when I was 16 or something, people were talking about, oh, all these top designers are all men. And I was like, yeah, because women cannot do a good job. And when I go to see doctors, like how do you call it, a female doctor, gynecologist?
Gynecologist.
Yeah, every time I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to discriminate men. I'm going to just, I don't mind if it's man or it's woman. I think like discrimination is bad. And but over the years, I learned, oh, it's not about discrimination. I did, in fact, feel assaulted by my gynecologist last year. And besides that, also, how can you expect this person really understand your struggle if he never experienced like a period pain himself? And like
well, you can solve that very easily. You just punch him in the balls, and then you'll understand period pain.
Yeah, so what I want to say is that I in the past I didn't want to bitch about like being a woman, and I now I start to more enlightened. I realize, oh, I grew up in a misogynistic society, and I took for granted so many things to be default. And now, while growing up, I start to learn more, and I start to read books from female perspective, and I realize, oh, actually, indeed, there are lots of things like men cannot understand and men don't experience, and it's not a woman we are less talented. It's just the society is built by men and the design for men, and the structure it's all like things don't change overnight. It doesn't say, okay, since 1960s women start to have rights, then everything is equal, while all the remaining structure of the world is a male dominant structure. And I start to understand the female perspective, but before that I was kind of misogynistic myself. And I feel it's interesting. For example, now I can see, oh, of course, women, we are not we didn't achieve so much as men, because every time as a teenager, as a younger, I turn on TV, all those shows about women, they just fight each other, they trick each other, and all their things in life is about being popular and find a handsome man. And while when men turn on TV, all those male characters, they are achieving in science, in law, in philosophy, and they have an example, but we don't. We just have all those bitches.
But also, we have so many female historical figures who have achieved things, but a lot of them are not popular and are not talked about. So
Yeah.
now more and more you'll see, like, the Facebook posts when somebody says, nobody ever speaks about this person who helped NASA and the Apollo whatever mission to the moon because she did the programming. And so you find out about all these women that you didn't even know existed, and you're like, oh, that's amazing, women can do that. But when I was little and you were little, like, women were like, what can you be? Well, a ballerina, a singer, a dancer, a princess, like, oh, I hope I'm a princess and somebody saves me.
Yeah, yeah. When I grow up, like it's one of my joke. Like I said, like my grandpa, he only talked with me once. He said, "Moni, you talk so loud. No man will ever marry you." And I was like, "Why are you telling me this? I'm only 5 years old." And it sounds funny, but it's actually what happened. I was actually 5 years old. And when a girl is 5 years old and you tell her biggest achievement in life is to marry a man, and I'm not going to achieve that, then you already programmed me that all I want in life is to find a man, and I'm not thinking about anything else. And yeah, so now I am able to see more feminist point of view, and I start to see, oh, that's what's happened. Oh, of course I feel this way. And I am very excited to read more about it and learn more, because I think the feminist movement, I think for lots of people who's not so woke, is because there are some extreme examples within this movement. People like to always think about the feminists are aggressive, and they have a really strange or exaggerated requests, but that's only a small part of it. But the whole, yeah,
I think it's also like a perception problem, no? Like when you think women who are assertive are aggressive, that's also because you're accustomed to women being quiet and polite and not making any noise, no? So maybe if you are programmed that way, a woman saying to you and telling you her opinion, like with confidence, is shocking. But that's your problem, that's not her problem, you know? Like, so that's the thing. Maybe you'll think, oh, she's aggressive. No, she's not aggressive, she's being assertive, and you think it's aggressive, you know? Like,
yeah, like a woman are not supposed to have a voice.
women are not supposed to take up space. You're supposed to be tiny, like don't bother anybody, just, you know. And in fact, like I consider my parents quite open-minded people in general, but they're still very much products of their time and their society. My parents grew up most of their life in communist Romania. I mean, a lot of things I can blame them for, but they didn't know better, and they don't know better. And they're not even aware of it, you know? So they really did the best they could, but they did a lot of damage anyway, which I think is maybe part of being a parent. But my mother would always tell me things like, Mara, if you're going to behave this way, nobody's going to want to be around you. Mara, if you talk so much, nobody's going to want to be around you. You have to think about what you want to say, then close your mouth, think if it's okay to say it, then open your mouth and say it. Like, don't speak without thinking, you know? And of course, then it makes you doubt about everything you ever want to say. But you know what? I have a lot of things to say, and a lot of them are good. So I'm not going to shut up.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. For women.
Yes.
You talk about the depression last summer. I want to ask you, do you have experience with mental health challenges before, or is that your first encounter?
So I had another phase of depression when I was like 22, 23. And I was actually, I had moved to Berlin in October to be with my ex-boyfriend. And I arrived there, and I was supposed to finish my thesis for my bachelor. So
before you continue, I want to interrupt you. So how much rent were you paying at that time?
Oh, actually, I was not paying that much rent then, because it was 2009. And I was splitting the bills with my ex-boyfriend, who was living in Vanze and in a flat that he started renting a long time ago. So he was paying like 400 euros. And so I was nothing.
It's fine. No one wants to move to Wannsee, so it's fine. You lost that apartment. Okay, please continue.
No, but he still has that flat, actually. The point is that, like, looking back, I understand why I got depressed. But I think it's always in retrospect that you understand, and you have that kind of compassion for yourself. But I stayed in Berlin 3 months, and then it was cold, it was gray, it was dark, it was depressing. I was in Wannsee. I didn't have any income. Like, I didn't have money. I was just a student finishing her degree. I had never written a thesis before. I didn't know how to do that. They don't really teach you that well how to write theses in Romania. And maybe in general, like, the public education system is not so clear about how to write 50 pages of something. So I was like, I went from hyperactive to only having one thing to do. And now I know myself better. And I know when I have only one thing to do, I go crazy. or I have too much time and my mind just, goes in circles. So that was my first experience with depression, and that one kind of just shifted because then I broke up with him. I started a job. I finished my thesis. I got my cat. Um, I put a lot of the merit of my better mental health on her. She's responsible for that. May she live a long life and be hopefully immortal. Um, yeah, spring came. Spring matters a lot. Sunlight and all of this. I started another relationship. A lot of things started changing. I started a master's degree that I really enjoyed, and so then I started getting busy with other things, and I kind of forgot that I was depressed somehow.
Mhm.
I was also very like a lot younger, but now that I'm like 33, well, now I'm 34, but like when it started, the depression started and I was 33, I'm like, fuck, now I'm 33. I should have my shit together by now. I don't have children. I don't have like I'm not married. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like I don't have a coherent plan. I don't have clear goals. Sure, I have a job. Sure, my students love me. Sure, my friends love me. Sure, I have two amazing cats. But like when you're depressed, some things like don't matter. You can have all the things in the world and you're like, yeah, but I'm missing some other things
Mhm.
that are wrong about me. And the belief that there's something wrong about you that you need to fix, that is one of like the biggest pains, because you're like, no, no, you don't understand. Whatever book you give me, whatever solution you give me, I am a special broken snowflake. There's nobody as broken as me. And all of these things can't possibly function for me because I'm fucked up forever. So yeah, that's I recently started believing that maybe I have ADHD, which apparently kind of is has as comorbidity anxiety and depression and OCD and other beautiful things like that. So it's like if you have ADHD and you don't know it and you don't understand it and you're neurodivergent in a world of people who are neurotypical and everything is built for them by them and you're judged according to this, it's very likely that you're going to get depressed because you're comparing yourself to people with completely different brains. And your brain is not wrong, it's just different.
Mhm.
So it's women don't get diagnosed with ADHD as often as men. It goes undiagnosed for a long time because women are good at masking it and integrating and hiding it and
Mhm.
just like, swallowing all the problems and keeping it inside. And it's funny, I have a student who's a doctor, a retired doctor, and she's like a second mom to me. We talk about everything, but she also has some very fixed ideas. And when I told her, hey, I think I might have ADHD, she said, no, Mara, you don't. No, you don't. I know you. You've been my teacher for 5 years. You don't have ADHD. And I'm like, excuse me? I think I know my experience of life,
Mhm.
She's like, no, you don't. You probably are a gifted person, but you don't have ADHD. And I'm like, why not both? There's
Mhm.
like, you know, so I'm starting now to think, okay, well, if my brain is simply different, then of course my life is not going to look like all these examples of lives that I see around me. But I'm still valuable to everybody around me just because my brain is my brain and there's no other brain like it. So,
I also think I have ADHD.
mm,
But getting diagnosed in Germany is really difficult. Like I need
mm,
to go through all those paperwork in German and everything. So I'm not bothered to do it. And I think I'm this type of ADHD that I read quite a few books about ADHD, and they all say the best and the simplest treatment on ADHD is to get diagnosed, like to understand that you have ADHD.
yeah,
And when I start to understand I have ADHD, I immediately feel better. And um, and also I read the books. I learned a few tricks like how to organize my day, how to organize my notes, and with just like without the medication, just the organizational knowledge, it improved my life tremendously. Like in
yeah,
the past, I cannot get anything done. Like everything is a mess, and I'm always fall behind on deadline, and I lose everything, and people always make notes, but I'm like, why I make notes? I will never find it. What's the point? And then I read a few books, and they all point to similar things. And eventually, I adopt this technique called a bullet journal. I don't know if you know.
Yeah,
So there are lots of like different variations, but I really recommend to read the book called the Bullet Journal Method. It's written by the person who invented this method, and then you can know the full power of it, because with all those notebooks on the market, it's really not flexible. But in order to maximize the power, you learn the logic behind it, and you design the template with your own needs. And I learned that. And now with my bullet journal, is the first time in my life that I'm on top of things, that I can get things done, and I don't forget things, and I know where are things are where, and what I need to do, and how to find the information I need. And yeah, it's like amazing. It's the first time I feel, oh my God, I'm organized, I'm on top of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That is when you said the most important thing that helped you is to say to yourself, okay, I have this, but like if I accept I have this, what tips and tricks can I apply for myself that help me? That I think it's true with like an ADHD diagnosis, even if you don't get an official one, but the things you learn, I think that self-diagnosis is valid, because there's a lot of like within the community of people with ADHD, there are going to be some people saying, oh, no, like don't just say you have it, but like actually what do you mean that if I don't get diagnosed until that moment, I don't have it, and magically when a doctor says you have it, then I do? No, if it works for you and it helps you, then think you have it, but if it helps you, like if it empowers you in a way because it gives you self-compassion and it removes the guilt, that's good. Because like a lot of people are like, why do you want to limit yourself with this label? And I was trying to explain to them, it's not limiting. For me, it's liberating. It's like, oh, it just gives me, it takes away all of that guilt again, that, oh, you never finish anything, you start a million things, you have a million passions, and you never finish things. And I'm like, no, but that's not bad in itself. It's just I have a different way of operating. I'm really good at coming up with ideas and solutions, not as good at implementing. So, but is that a crime? It's a crime when you judge everybody by what they implement and what they finish doing, but people need to have creative people, and like we're valuable to society just the way we are. So if you accept that, then you really become limitless, because you're like, oh, let's not look at the things I'm not good at, let's look at my superpowers, because I do have superpowers. So and I want to learn to embrace them.
I think there are many like different schools, different thoughts on ADHD. Some thoughts, they don't even believe it's a disease or it's an issue. It's just like when we're hunter-gatherer, like there's different responsibilities. Like for example, if you like ADHD people can hyper focus, but they cannot focus in general, then they are hunters because they can get the animal, then they can do whatever they want. And and also I listened to like a TED talk. It says like there's a little girl, like she cannot focus, and her family is like really worried. And then the doctor said, oh, she likes dance, just take her to dance. And eventually
this is the Ken Robinson, Sir Ken Robinson.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then eventually
I know the TED talk.
Yeah, it's really good. Like eventually this girl became a famous dancer and have a multi-million business. But if it's today's society, we just drag her until she submit and sit in front of the desk. But not everyone should be a scholar, and there are so many people they don't need to do desk research. They are good with their hands, they are good with their body, they do so many other different things. And it's just extremely unfair to say, okay, we only value those people who fit into this category, who can sit and read.
No, it's bullshit. And also, yeah, because the world needs, like the world is an ecosystem and it needs all of this diversity to function. I follow this other coach because I just find her very inspiring. She's called Simone Seol. She's born in South Korea, and she lives now in South Korea, but she was also like I think she lived in the US for a while. And she has ADHD, she has depression, she has anxiety. She says that sometimes she just gets catatonic and she just cannot do anything. But she has built a multi-million industry of coaching because she's an excellent marketer. She's very like, I don't know, she's bizarre, but she's like embracing how bizarre she is, and her authenticity is what sells. So I recommend you to like follow her just to
How
see
to
her
find
story.
her?
It's called Joyful Marketing, I think, or Simone Seol, Seoul. And she has a podcast called Joyful Marketing. So her courses are really like expensive for my budget, but there's like she's like so good at marketing herself, and she's like, no, if you sign up for this, you're gonna become a better coach. Like because she markets to coaches to get more clients. So like she teaches other coaches how to sell better. But I remember she had one post that said that there is a U-shaped hole in the universe, and your only purpose in life is to fill it, and you're doing that fine. So basically, there's like if the world is like a puzzle, then there's a tiny little piece that has my name on it, and only I can fit that hole. Like there's only one Mara that can fit in it, and is the same. There's only like you're fulfilling your purpose of being Moni, you know. So
that's beautiful. So I want to ask you, like when you get out of the depression last year, first question, like did you have a resistance to label it depression?
just a moment, let me shut the door because the men in my flat are talking. So I don't know exactly if I'm already out of it. I still have moments. Your question was if I had resistance to get out of it?
No, do you have a resistance to call it depression?
I'm not sure what to call it, to be honest, because I think if you look at it from the typical perspective of what a depression looks like, my depression looks like me painting a million things, me writing a million poems, me going to Italy and doing a 3-week Italian course in Florence, making new friends, joking, like just I can't sit still. But that's because when I'm understimulated, like, and that's something that I learned recently about ADHD that makes sense to me, that ADHD people get depressed when they're understimulated. So it makes sense that I always need to be doing a million things, So a lot of people are like, wow, Mara, but you can't be depressed because like, look at you, you're so active. And I'm like, yeah, but depression doesn't look the same for everybody. I maybe it's not depression. I don't know what to call it because I can never be in anybody else's head. I just know that I don't feel okay. And I know that I don't want to feel the way I'm feeling, or I don't want to think the way I'm thinking. And sometimes I just want to take my brain out and replace it with another brain, or cut out the part of my brain that's not working the way I think it should, and have only good thoughts. But that's, yeah, I don't know if it's 100%. I don't even know if we can say for sure, oh, this is depression, this is this, because it's gonna look different for everybody. So, but yeah, people will be like, oh, you're not depressed, you're just grieving, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's grief, if it's depression, if it's seasonal affective disorder, if it's ADHD, if it's just being human, and this is part of the human experience. It could be all of those or none of those. Maybe it's a special mental health problem that only exists for me.
And what from last year to this year, what helped you the most? Like what small tricks or practice you did help you the most for you?
I think something that helped me a lot was doing loving kindness meditation. It's called
Oh, wow. Like, wow, this is, you are the first person I know doing this. It helped me tremendously too. Yeah.
I have a really close friend in the US who I haven't seen since the start of the pandemic. He's my hiking buddy. and he was doing Tonglen with another woman on Zoom, and she was living in Switzerland, he was in Boston, and I was in Barcelona, and they invited me to join them. And just, I guess, the concept of loving kindness, and of the fact that it's not like you need to work to deserve love, or you need to work to deserve compassion, but you can offer it to yourself all the time. This concept helped me a lot. Just so the meditation practices, but they were not many of them, but they helped as a concept, like just wishing other people, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be loved. That kind of fills you up with love. When you give love, it fills you up with love. And another thing that helped me is to realize that when when my brain is offering me negative thoughts, and is panicked and is experiencing, like when my body is experiencing fear or anxiety or all of these things, it's not doing it like against me. It's actually coming from a place of love. Like it's trying to do its best to keep me alive. So a friend of mine who is in my coaching group, she told me, just imagine that if you had a translator, like that there was a language to translate what your brain is trying to say, is just you're understanding the wrong message. What it's trying to say is, I love you, Mara, but I don't know how to say it better. So just thinking that my brain is actually there to help me survive, and that it's trying its best to keep me alive, even if that manifests itself in the wrong ways, like overanalyzing, overthinking things, trying to resist reality, trying to find solutions when there's no solution to being a human with human feelings. That's, cultivating that compassion every day for myself, that helped me the most. Just infinite self-compassion.
Yeah. I think one reason I really like the book you recommend me, Burnout, by Emily, how to pronounce Nagoski, is that in this book she talked, do you have issues of loving yourself? If you have this issue, then try loving kindness meditation, because you start love someone else, then you can cultivate that love and the compassion for yourself. And I was really impressed because around 1 year ago, I ran into meta meditation by chance. And it really fundamentally changed me, because I remember once I did acid, and I went meditation. I want to, because I read a book called Lost Connections, and I want to learn how can I meditate. And when I was meditating at that time, it's really visualized. I just feel at that time I had lots of issues with my work, with my coworker, and for a very long time when I was doing comedy, I believed everyone hates me. And then during that meditation, I just felt like I was in a very dark, like a dark, dangerous forest. And while I was meditating, I feel like sunlight came in and everything started to opening it, and I was welcomed by the forest. And then when I came out from that meditation, I realized, oh, no one hates me, that most people just don't know me. And what they don't know, they cannot, even they have negative thoughts, is also because it's caused not by hatred, but caused by lack of understanding. And that can be changed. And then every day I practice loving kindness meditation, and like this love, this compassion feeling, like very soon I feel, when I go to a supermarket, I'm more mindful. I want to make this person, I want to make her day better. And when I encounter with the mailman, I want in the past, if they ring the bell and they don't come upstairs, I will be mad. And now I'm like, yeah, they go to deliver so many packages every day. Of course, they don't want to do extra work. And now, like, I want to make them happy. I want to make them having a good day. And I also feel, soon I start to realize I also deserve this happiness. Like I deserve to be loved. And instead of saying all those really strict, really like harsh words to myself, I start to think, okay, I also deserve this compassion I have for others. So that's one of the reasons I feel like Emily, her book is really great, because there are so many tips, like it's like she's so on the point. Like if I have read her book like a few years ago, I wouldn't have to wait until I stumble upon this
You don't know,
meditation.
because maybe now is when you understood it, because I had the same thought, for example, with The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Like when I was first depressed, I had a friend of mine who lives in Berlin, actually, and she recommended me this book, and it was before I got depressed, and she was like, "You have to read this book, The Power of Now. It's amazing." And I was just like, I remember I was like, "Oh, The Power of Now," blah, you know. And then after I got depressed and after I came out of it, I read the book and I was like, oh shit, I should have read the book before, then I wouldn't ever be depressed. And no, it's just I wasn't ready for it then. You know, like I couldn't have understood it then. So I think some things come when they come, and like thinking, oh, if only I had seen it before, I would have saved so much time of my life. But who cares? The past doesn't exist anymore, you know?
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for the chat today. It's really great, and I really like all those resources you recommended, especially from female point of view. So there are two podcasts you recommended today. One is called "Unfuck Your Mind."
I think it's Unfuck Your Brain, if I'm not wrong, by Cara Loventhal, and the other one is it's mostly like about marketing, but I just like following Simone Seol on social media because she's so inspiring, just showing you what a person who has had mental health struggles and who admits to being like a human being with a mind that's just all over the place. She's like, I am all of this, and yet I am also a badass that who can create and who can do all of this, and who's now earning millions of dollars. And I started as a tarot card reader in Korea. Like she's like, I just, you know, and that was, I don't know, 6 years ago in her career plan. And now she's I don't know how much money she's raised only this month, because she decided that this month all the money she makes from all the courses that she sells and all the books that she sells, all of them are going to go to Ukraine charities, all of them. So, you know, and I think it's been more than $200,000 in a month that she's directly donated. So I find her very inspirational, especially because when you have any kind of mental health struggle, one of the biggest things that helps, for me at least, is to realize you're not alone. Like to realize that whatever you're going through, somebody else has gone through it and come out of it. That maybe your timeline is uniquely yours, but you just got to hang in there, float if you need to, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And you know, just sometimes it helps just to think of really exaggerated examples. Like sometimes it helps me to think that one of my favorite musicians, who's John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, he was for 4 years just like living in an absolute dump. There's a little documentary made about him. I don't know who filmed it, and it's just like blood on the walls, and he's like completely high on heroin and like really almost on the border of death. And now he's out of it, he's performing, he's meditating every day, doing yoga, running, and he's come out of that. So sometimes it helps me to think people have come out of worse. So if they can do it, I can do it, because I'm human, I'm not an alien, I'm not an exceptionally broken human. So and these examples of people with mental health struggles who still have a joyful life, it helps you realize that this is just the human condition. It's just 50-50. You'll have 50% of shit and 50% of glory, and that's just how it is. You know, you can't escape the negative part, and the other part is beautiful because you have the contrast.
Cool. Thank you so much. I will totally check out the podcast you recommended, and hope you have a nice evening, and I will see you soon in Berlin.
I hope so. And yeah, like I'm hoping to like listen to all of your advice for open mics and all of this, and yeah, I'm looking forward to a 1.5 months in Berlin soon.
Cool. See you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you, Moni. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.